All right, now that we have begun at the end, we're going to return to the beginning of Gregory's homily. Now, Gregory does some interesting and beautiful things at the beginning of this homily. Okay, he wants to introduce us to Mary Magdalene and make her a somewhat familiar character. He actually wants, and we'll see him do this, to make Mary Magdalene an example of anyone within the church, right? Anyone to whom Gregory is speaking, anyone who might, he may not have known this, but anyone who might over the centuries come and read this homily. Anyone who belongs to this larger community, and that this community, therefore, right, the church as a whole, even the mystical church with the saints, becomes this way. So what he does is he brings us into this garden scene, right? This is on John 20, 11 through 18. So the scene in which Mary comes to the tomb and is looking and eventually sees the angels and is weeping because she can't find Christ, and then eventually encounters him. So he brings us to Mary in this moment and asks us to think, what must she be feeling, right? What must she be thinking? What is she doing? And so in that, Mary becomes an example for everyone, for anyone who is seeking to understand and to see God. Right? This is part of the monastic pursuit, the way of the monastic life that Gregory participates in, a way of seeking to see God, to understand God. And so it's interesting that we see or we hear all of these echoes of Benedict in a homily in which we are in a garden, right? Something that helped us think about the rule of Benedict. So, how is it that Gregory introduces us to Mary? Okay. He asks us on page 188, okay, if you're there with me on page 188, where Mary is standing outside the sepulchre and weeping. He asks us to consider the woman's state of mind. Okay? So we must consider in this the woman's state of mind, that a great force of love inflamed her. When even the disciples departed from the sepulchre, she did not depart. She sought for him whom she had not found, weeping as she searched. Being inflamed with the fire of her love, she burned with a desire for him, who she believed had been taken away. So it happened that she who stayed behind to seek him was the only one who saw him. Surely the essence of every good work is perseverance, and truth has told us that the person who perseveres to the end is the one who will be saved. I'm skipping a little bit to the next paragraph. But Mary, while she was weeping, stooped down and looked into the sepulchre. Right? So through all these tears, she's looking into the sepulchre. It is true that she had already seen that the sepulchre was empty and had already reported that the Lord had been taken away. Right? She told the disciples that. So here she is, she's still looking. Why did she stoop down again? Why did she again long to see? It is not enough for a lover to have looked once, because the force of love intensifies the effort of the search. She sought a first time and found nothing. She persevered in seeking, and so it happened that she found him. It came about that her unfulfilled desires increased, and as they increased, they took possession of what they had found. So Mary, she's a theological example, right? Someone who is seeking and seeking. In this, she's even seeking, right, in this garden, at this garden tomb, into death. And as she seeks into that, into Christ's death, she finds him. It's really beautiful. But let's pay attention to a word that was just brought in here by Gregory. It came about that her unfulfilled desires increased. This word desire, remember, is one that we heard from Augustine. And we know that Mary Magdalene, at least the way she's described in this homily, which there's often conflations of characters named Mary within Scripture in early and medieval exegesis, but her desires were not necessarily for seeking Christ. Remember, we heard at the end, if you're someone who's been enkindled with the desires of lust, something that also St. Augustine struggled with, although John didn't talk about it. So it's these desires, right? And they're described as being inflamed with the fire of love, the desire for him who she believed had been taken away. So these little bits that we have already heard before the conclusion of this paragraph about Mary standing and weeping. And so here we see this Mary who has this great desire of love to find and to seek and to find and to see Christ. This is where Gregory now does something else really beautiful. This is all really beautiful. The next paragraph at the very bottom, the last two lines of 188 start. This is the reason the church says of this person, her own spouse, in the Song of Songs, upon my bed during the night I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him and did not find him. I will rise and go about the city through its squares and streets. I will seek him whom my soul loves. Okay? He places Mary, this jewel, right? This beautiful example of loving desire within the text, right? The setting here for her. This is actually an analogy Grover Zinn uses in an article. But he places her in that setting of the Song of Songs. The Song of Songs is a text that has been used since the time of Origen, so he died in 254, to describe the love between the soul and God and Christ and the church. So here Mary becomes an example of, or an exemplar, for the love the church has for Christ, right? And that the whole church, all of the members, are going to seek and should seek out of this desire. And if they look, and they look again, and they look again, they will find Christ. He concludes this section in which he brings in the Song of Songs on page 190, where he writes, anyone, right, anyone, not just Mary, anyone who has been able to reach out for the truth has been on fire with this love. For this reason, David said, my soul has thirsted for the living God. When shall I come and appear before the face of God? And he counseled us, saying, seek his face continually. And for this reason, the prophet said, my soul has desired you in the night, and with my spirit within my breast, I will watch for you in the morning. And again, the church says to him in the Song of Songs, I have been wounded with love. This last phrase, I have been wounded with love, is also then a way of describing Mary, right? This desire that has inflamed her, almost like a painful desire, right? To seek. And the next paragraph talks about anyone, right, who has this desire, who's inflamed, who's wounded in this way by God's love, will run. But if it now begins to burn the soul with the desire of following him whom it loves, it runs. Again, think about the rule. It runs, since the fire of love has melted it. Its desire makes it anxious. Everything that used to please it in the world seems worthless. It finds nothing agreeable outside of its Creator. Things that once delighted the heart afterwards become grievously oppressive. Nothing brings it consolation in its sadness as long as the one it desires is not beheld. The heart sorrows. Light itself is loathsome. Scorching fire burns away the rust of sin in the heart. The soul is inflamed as if it were gold, because gold loses its beauty through use, but fire restores its brightness. So Mary loved, who turned a second time to the sepulchre she had already looked into. Let us see the result of her search, which had been redoubled by the power of love.